Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Brightworks in another match of Beyond All Reason, where today we're taking a look at everybody's favorite Supreme Isthmus. I know I always preface these games with it, but I feel like it's fair to say, because I don't watch this map all too often. In fact, even when I play this game, I avoid this map pretty much as I can, typically tending to stay in the Rotato lobbies, so I do feel obligated every so often, because I know it's basically the most popular map in the lobbies, to go ahead and cover one of these games every once in a while. And apparently we've got an interesting one sent on over by one of the players in this match right here. I've learned not to actually point out which player, because oftentimes it will actually spoil who the victor is, and I don't want to do that for you guys. So instead, I'll just say one of the players in this match sent on over this this replay with a pretty interesting tag. So I'm excited to see exactly what goes down right here. And today, spawning as the Blue Armada commander in the backline, it's going to be none other than Stalfern. Stalfern going for Armada in the backline. Pretty typical, pretty standard. This is what is prototypically the tech position. Usually you go into the triple mechs, a couple of wind turbines, the bot lab, and then you have a couple of choices. So you can either go into a big wind farm. The way that works is basically building probably up to about 6 to 10 constructors and sending them out in teams of 2 to build wind turbines and E-converters. Whoa, excuse me. Choking on my own grand ambitions here. That is typically how I like to play this, actually, because it gives you a lot of flexibility in the late game, but obviously it also drains your economy quite harshly. The other option, of course, is to just go for what is more prototypical. Usually you go for some sort of energy production. Usually solar panels are the most consistent. Resbots here, wonderful, of course, as well, because they can eat up a bunch of the flora all over the place for that juicy energy collection. Either one is an effective strategy, but basically to try and get enough energy to start producing T2 off of the sacrifice of the commander. Basically how it goes in the backline. For anybody that might be new here, now you know. Meanwhile, on oh, okay, some interesting shenanigans going on over here. Oh no, never mind. I thought Willie Fogg, our red team Cortex leader here, had given the lab over to the pink commander. No, it's just a construction bot and a res bot here. Going to be used by the pink commander to, well, for one, claim this metal extract over here, but also continue to expand the economy outside of the water to make sure that there's nothing really for these boats to get attacked, or rather for the enemy boats to attack over on this side. Pretty standard, I would say. Now, we've got a Centurion Rush up and running right here. Interesting. One of the interesting thing about Centurions is the fact that they trade so phenomenally against Grunts. They're a purpose-built tool for Armada to deal with Grunts and other spam-like creatures. Rovers, Rascals, and Pawns, typically the other big three, but they can actually deal decently with medium tanks as well, which is kind of an unknown, kind of a hidden gem about the Centurion, is the fact that they actually deal so well with medium tanks. You wouldn't really think it, but because they have enough sturdiness and the range, and just enough mobility to dodge some of the projectiles from medium tanks, they actually end up trading out relatively well. Not to mention that they're about the same cost, so you can usually get about the same number of them out on the field, and of course they can scale from that flanking bonus quite easily because their lasers do a consistent line of damage, right? Rather than kind of, the projectiles can sort of ping off the tanks in weird ways, and oftentimes that can cause some issues. The lasers are basically consistent. Not to mention, of course, when you go for bots, you also have the luxury of resurrection bots, which are very powerful. Of course, their ability to pick tanks up or Centurions or anything and put them back on the field, or of course just massage them back to full health, basically unparalleled as far as the firepower world goes. A amphibious constructor here for the Cyan commander, apparently going to be going into, oh wow, okay, sending this constructor, whoa, okay, sending this constructor all the way to the right-hand side, definitely a very, okay, a very interesting play right there. Going to be queuing this constructor, where are we sending this thing? Okay, yeah, we've sent it all the way around, going to be building a jammer on this little island over here for some reason. OP Man, one of the developers, one of the most helpful developers, has definitely helped me out plenty of times running some of those bigger lobbies. One of the ones who's definitely helped me quite a few times run some of those 16v16 or 32v32 lobbies. Some good fun in case you're interested in checking it out. Those are usually on the live streams on Saturdays. 12 to 4 is our standard time, but sometimes we stream basically all day. Best way to know when and where exactly I'll be live is to go ahead and check the Discord, which of course is always linked down below in the description as well. Mace is on the field here now, and they're a little bit less sturdy than Thugs, but a little bit cheaper as well, so I guess makes up for the cost. Resbot goes down right there on the front line, but the Thugs are now, or the Maces, pardon me, are in position to start fighting back here on the front. Those aggravators are going to be quite difficult to deal with, though. Yeah, they outrange the Maces quite nicely, and obviously they do quite a big burst of damage, so when those rockets connect, it does hurt quite a lot. It's going to be in the best interest of player 0101 to keep these Maces moving around and keep them trading out as much as possible. Every time one of these rockets connects, you're losing a lot of HP on that Mace. Yeah, there we go. Pretty easy to blast down, and these LLTs are a little questionable too, because obviously It only takes 4, I believe it's 4 aggravator shots in order to kill an LLT. It might be 5, but it's not very many is the point. So essentially 1 or 2 volleys in order to take down an LLT means they're not very efficient on the front line. And already we've got tons and tons of aggravators, rocketeers, all sorts of stuff on the front. Means that this is not going to be a very efficient way of holding the front line with static defenses. I think better off just putting the 85 metal per turret into units on the front line. That being said, it does protect you from spam ever so slightly, which is nice. In case you have to fall back because of, for instance, a big swarm of grunts or something, then those LLTs can be a good fallback point. Typically, though, you want to concentrate them a little bit in order to make that happen. Nobody claiming this island over on the left-hand side, by the way. Meanwhile, the Green Commander doing a great job of claiming the island here, transporting a constructor and an anti-air bot to shoot down any transports headed on over in this direction, doing a phenomenal job of making sure that the team has an excellent little capture. Oh, okay, some amphibious play right here from OP Man. I was curious what the, I was curious what the play was here. So, this is a very typical Tzar rush going on right here. You can see the Red Commander trying to put as many resources as possible into producing this Tzar tank, but obviously has sacrificed everything else in order to do it. So this is basically a timing attack. These Garpike know that there's going to be a T2 lab up and running, and they basically always are going to have all their resources dumped into that lab, and whatever unit is coming out of it means that there's nothing left over to deal with the Garpike tanks. Oh, this is a brilliant play right here. So this is a counter meta. That's what I'm seeing right here, is that this is basically saying, hey, I know what move you're going to make because it's quote-unquote the standard move, so I'm just going to make the move that perfectly counters it, and that's exactly what these Garpike tanks are to me. Geothermal, an obvious target right here. I'm glad to see that the Garpikes are now targeting that down. If we can manage to pop that Geothermal, it'd be ginormous. 27, 20. Ooh, just barely doesn't manage to snipe that Geo. I think there's enough grunts now to deal with this in the backline. Just barely managing to save that Geo with maybe a little bit better targeting. It might have been able to do it, just targeting that from the beginning. We targeted the T2 lab here very early on. Either way, very nicely done. Delaying a huge portion of the production right here from the Red Commander, who's going to try and pump out that Tzar still, but obviously, as you can see, that's going to take quite a bit longer now that the build power is actually down, and that, yeah, things have scaled out of control a little bit quicker here. Buys Inventaser, Inventaser? Yeah, oh, Inventaser. You see from Green Commander a little bit of time going for an economy of their own, building some wind turbines, building some T2 metal extractors, building all that good stuff. Going to be building some butlers here, the fast assist repair bots. Typically used actually for building wind turbines. One of the most popular use cases for those bots is the fact that they can build wind turbines in about 10 seconds per bot. Makes them very, very efficient on the front lines for setting up those, or pardon me, in the back lines for setting up those wind turbines. One of the most efficient to boot. Single bomber headed over in this direction. Single Stormbringer bomber. Let's see how good it is. I.e. Oh, I actually managed to pop a metal extractor and a wind turbine. Alright, not bad. I swear Stormbringers must have gotten a buff or something, because it feels like they're quite a bit better than they used to be. Stormbringers basically used to be worthless on their own. It looks like nowadays they're able to, at the very least, kill some wind turbines and certainly some E-converters, so that's good to see. All said and done, definitely achieving enough value out of that. The E-converters being down and not turning that energy into metal will be value enough here. That bomber also taking out some wind turbines and the metal extractor, of course, though, also adds to it, so I would say, for a single bomber making it across the map, that's definitely well worthwhile. Agitator set up on the front line, nicely blocked by the LLT right here. Always cool to see whenever that happens. We do have a scout plane coming out as well. Do we have some sort of rush going on that would necessitate the scout plane? I don't believe so. The Tzar headed out in the field here as well. This spells the end of the era for the blue team. We need to see some sort of armored response against that Tzar. We're eating up the lab. I think I agree with OP Man here. I'm a little confused why Inventaser isn't using these T2 bots to upgrade. Well, okay, yeah, we passed them around. Okay, so the team has received T2 bots right here. Yeah, we've got one in the base right here as well. Okay, so team has their T2. I guess Inventaser must have some sort of plan to use that metal from that laboratory up on. Going for the advanced geo is the next move right here. Getting that AGO set up and running is usually what you want to do with that metal. It's 1,000 energy per second, well, 1,250 energy per second, I believe. It's gigantic, and for the cost of basically a fourth of the cost of a fusion reactor, you get more than the energy production of one. Obviously, I mean, I don't have to spell out how that's ridiculously efficient. Naval units on the Northern Sea have been entirely uncontested, though, so here comes the destroyers, finally ready to fire away at the land here. Probably should have been happening a little while ago, but there we are. The units of the Lavender Commander, Shavakana, moving forward at this point, and doing a wonderful job of blasting down a whole bunch of these units. Yeah, very nicely done. Tick's running over. I don't think they're going to be able to find much value. Frigates pretty easily destroying them. The Hot Pink Commander forced to pull the units from the front line, and oh my goodness, look at how quickly those frigates can dismantle these bots on the front line. It's about as bad of a matchup as you could hope for. At least for the Hot Pink Commander, it's a perfect matchup for the Purple Commander. Thrilled with the way that that trade went. Hundreds and hundreds of metal lost for the Hot Pink Commander, basically nothing lost for the Purple Commander. But now is the era of the Tzar. The Tzar tank rolling out right here, pushing back the commanders that were hoping for a D-gun. The only way you're going to be able to deal with this in time is with a couple of shuriken. No AA truck was built alongside this Tzar, so it does mean that it doesn't really have the air support in order to shut down shuriken. Naughty toasts. Going to be unable to get close enough. Boom goes the commander on the front line, and just like that, the Tzar is able to knock out all the competition on the fronts. OP Man now suffering greatly. The Tzar might not know exactly where your location is, so it just crams even more explosives into the projectile, more condensed matter into the projectile, so it erupts even harder when it's fired away and collides with whatever it does touch down on. Plasma field disintegrates and the condensed matter explodes immediately, causing devastation untold upon any commander unfortunate enough to be standing within 100 feet or so of this concussive shell. Basically firing a big explosive high energy round right into the face of OP Man, who is trying desperately to get within range. It's an energy issue though, and nice job from those ticks too. Ticks getting close enough to reveal the commander, and boom goes OP Man's commander as well. I love the Garpike play. That was such a creative play, but unfortunately just didn't shut down that Tzar hard enough. It was so close, and I think there's a way to refine it in the future that it actually completely works. I think you could probably completely shut down the shut down that play by popping the geothermal in order to kill the laboratory, because everyone's going to build the laboratory in some sort of proximity to the geo, because it's where all the build power is going to be located. There's definitely a way to make that play. OP Man paving the way towards a new counter meta, where just a couple of Garpikes pop up on the other side and manage to blow all that to smithereens. Obviously, that's incumbent on the fact that you, one way or another, don't have some sort of Navy presence blocking those amphibious tanks from rolling out here. But that early into the game, 6 or 7 minutes into the game, shouldn't really be too much of an issue. There's also something to be said for going ahead and going into the pond and building those salamanders out of the amphibious lab. A little bit more expensive, obviously takes a little bit more time, but you have about, I want to say 10 minutes before the Tzar hits the front lines. Maybe a little faster than that, maybe 8 to 9 minutes, something like that. You definitely have a little bit of time though, and so I can't help but wonder if maybe that would be the way to go, is to go for a few less units in total, but the salamanders are quite a bit better. Player 001 in a lot of trouble right here. Ooh, reclaiming from the front line. Yeah, these destroyers are pretty good. They're a little grouped up though. Oh, and the Tzar is getting huge value. I love that. Love the Tzar connections right there. The King of Tanks showing us exactly why, but boom goes the pink commander on the sidelines right there, as the destroyers do manage to reach out and punch hard enough to bring down that commander. Frigates now firing away right here. We have them trying to kill this laboratory, but there's tons of build power right here. This is actually a misprioritization. Oh no. The pink commander not realizing that there's so much build power here, throwing it all away. Oh no. Uh-oh, what a throw. Oh, this cannot be allowed. This is a horrible, horrible trade right here for the pink commander, losing it all while trying to kill this laboratory, but the build power is more than enough to keep the lab up and running, and now the pink forces are diminished. The entire Navy is gone in just the blink of an eye. Oh, what a tragedy for our pink commander. Paradise loses everything in a single engagement against a laboratory. 2 shots into these build turrets over here would have been enough to shut this all down, would have won the battle handily. Now this battle has completely been won by the green commander. 1 res sub to eat up all this wreckage and turn it all into a bunch of destroyers, and this game is over on the naval side. Yeah, fully and completely over. Laboratory down right here for the brown commander as well. Looks like a couple of submarines are still out and available and going to be potentially useful for shutting down some of those metal extractors, but T2 is already up and running for the purple commander. J1013 has managed to get those T2 up and running and is going to be doing a great job of it. Hounds on the front line as we move into a T2 game, and it looks like the Tzar has been pulled back and replenished, but at the very end of the day, the Tzar is essentially a relic at this point. It's going to be blasted down by those T2 relatively efficiently. I think it might be better to just reclaim it, yeah. Reclaiming that Tzar and using it for metal to up the economy, maybe not the worst idea. This guy over on the corner is building another jammer. Oh, cheeky. Going for a jammer and then going for a couple of construction turrets here, probably to try and build, I'm guessing, an amphibious laboratory. It's got to be. T2 laboratory up and running, by the way, for the Cyan Commander, and indeed, yeah, we're just going to be upping the economy in the meantime. We have Banishers coming up. I think more likely than not, though, OP Man probably just trying to get into the water, trying to build an amphibious lab, and I think that's a great idea. A little bit more build power to build this fusion reactor. As you can see, a huge energy stall as the wind sort of plummets off there. One amphibious con to build a bunch of tidal generators, also a good idea. You've got the pond, safe production, you may as well use it. T2 having a lovely time devastating this front line. Not much more to be said about that. As you can tell, the hounds are quite good. The sharpshooter, the real main star of the show here, though, because obviously it's going to be able to do the most damage against that Tzar. When it manages to target the Tzar anyways. Yep, there you go. You can see it click for just a second there, but it brought that Tsar's health down by about half. Every time one of these Tsars does fire away, though, it's going to get so much value against anything sort of squishy. And I think the biggest issue is once those sharpshooters come out in number, if there's enough anti-spam on the front line, there's not really any sturdy enough unit you're going to build, aside from some of the biggest T3 that are really going to be able to punch through a line of sharpshooter. That's why keeping the early sharpshooters alive is so important, because later on, once you have 5, 10, 15 sharpshooters, there's not a lot that can really contest them. Even if they whiff their shots and hit something in the back, odds are they're going to hit something pretty valuable. Uncloaked Spybot right there, that was a bit odd. One of the few weaknesses for sharpshooters, by the way, if you're a Cortex commander and you're fed up with dealing with sharpshooters, one of the weaknesses is obviously air. Going for a big air play in order to shut down those sharpshooters is usually one of the best way of dealing with them. Torpedo bomber, bombing the sand. This is just gigantic. This is a wonderful play right here. The entire Navy now jumping on top of this. I mean, this is predictable. This is, once you lose that many boats on that side of the map, there is not really much you're going to be able to do here. A nice battle, a hard-fought battle right here. But at this point, it's a matter of reclaim and repair and resurrection, and there's really only so much you can do. The Peak Commander knocked out entirely, as every one of those boats they sent to the other side now turns coat and heads directly towards their main production center. So there you go. Roughneck gunships in the sky here as well, trying their very best. Looks like we've, yeah, okay, so we've gone for some tidal gens, and now we're going to go ahead and build the submersible lab, the amphibious laboratory here. Fighters shooting down the torpedo bombers, but at the very least, yeah, nicely done. Oh, we're going for... okay. Going for a fusion reactor on the Geo spot. Not entirely sure about that. A Cerberus cannon might have been worthwhile. Won't matter now, though, as the destroyers fire away a long enough range to hit that laboratory, too. Ooh, that starts to hurt. That definitely starts to hurt. Yeah, those red forces are now forced to try and fire out to coast, or out to the shore. Not an ideal situation. No radar here as well? Is that the issue? Oh my goodness. Yeah, no radar available. Yikes. Paradise taps out of the game. Throws the towel. Gives in to the overwhelming force of the Green Commander. You know what? Just like that, both of the high seas are won. What was a tragic loss of the front line here has suddenly evolved greatly into, I mean, easily into a ginormous advantage for the blue team. Meanwhile, the backliners, backlining as hard as they can. Just one more APHIS, that's all it takes. It is a sort of terrible catch-22, because if you don't build another APHIS, then you're going to be behind their backliner. But if you do build another APHIS, you're abandoning your team where maybe you might be able to win in the front line. It's one of those game sense things that's really hard to justify, but one of the easiest things, especially if I'm an Armada commander, one of the easiest things I feel like I can do to appease my team if I'm playing in this eco role is just to set up 6 or so construction turrets and 2 T1 laboratories and just start spamming out ticks. They cost relatively nothing, especially once you're into that T2 economy. I think it's definitely well worth it, and it helps your team out quite a lot. We're going for some flak trucks, which is also a great idea. An excellent way of helping your air player out, because as soon as those fighters and bombers start coming across the map, any amount of static defense is going to be wonderful. What on earth are these torpedo bombers doing? Scout torpedo bombers now headed towards the Tan Commander, the directives base. Yeah, torpedo bombers, you have to utilize them with a little bit of finesse. They're definitely a little bit tricky to get the hang of. They drop their payload regardless of what type of land is beneath them. It means that if you're over land and they drop their payload intending to hit something at the sea, they will still hit the land. Cerberus firing away. Trying its very best. And doing a good job of it, actually. The Cerberus can reach out quite far into the ocean. There is a radar jammer here, so at the very least these boats are protected from radar spotting. Anything with long enough line of sight, though, will be able to detect them. Love that we're utilizing this Despot battleship to fire away, though. Very cool to see. Very important, too. It's worth mentioning. The Purple Commander trying to build some of that very OP static defense. Those T2 torpedo launchers, very, very powerful. Up and running and immediately starts firing away, trying to collide those torpedoes, those heavy torpedoes with whatever it can. Gets 2 shots off before being overwhelmed right here. And suddenly the Purple Navy is in a little bit of trouble. You know what? Not the end of the world, though. Frigates not targeting down the necessary boats. I think the Despot battleship should be the primary target right here. Doing a decent job of firing away, but all said and done, it's just an overwhelming amount of firepower available from the Purple Commander. And with the second Despot on the high seas as well, obviously doubling that firepower quite significantly. Or is quite significant, I should say. One of them does go down, but we have enough range, enough line of sight to actually see out into the distance. And those T2 torpedo launchers, man, they're tough to push into. I think without the res subs to actually reclaim all this is not a great situation. 2 on sea is going to be tough, though. We have a bunch of submarines moving around on the northern side. We have spotter cameras right here to try and detect anything, but they're not going to see the submarines. Flak boats headed in this direction, and salamanders ready to rip and tear until it is done. Uncloaked cloakable fusion reactors over here. Always a little bit strange. The cloakable fusion reactor feels like such a strange investment. You pay quite a bit more metal, about, I think it's 600 extra metal. You just verify that really quickly. 4,300 versus 4,700. Actually, it's not very much extra metal. Yeah, I thought the price difference was quite a bit higher. 400 extra metal for a cloakable fusion reactor. Doesn't actually seem like all too much. For the fact that it won't be bombed out of existence, yeah, I guess I could see that being pretty valuable. Especially if you're going for that newfangled fusion reactor scaling. I say newfangled, it's been around forever, but it's newfangled in the sense that it's popular nowadays. Depth charge launchers trying to clear out all this. We need a couple of those T2 cruisers to actually deal with this many submarines. They are quite dangerous, and especially against basically just the battleship here as the main damage dealer. Yeah, it can be a little bit sketchy. Spotter anti-nuke ship will be brought low as well. Razorbacks now out on the field here for the Yellow Commander. Wow. Looks like, oh, okay, those are produced out of the backline and sent up to the front line. There's actually not enough energy for the Yellow Commander, so I'd like to see one of these fusion reactors handed over, at the very least, in order to make sure that the Yellow Commander can actually fire the weapons that they've been given. Fighters pulled to try and deal with all this, though. Nuclear bombers on the front and up and on the prowl, looking for a good subject to try and destroy. Torpedo launchers firing away here. Nicely done. Those 2 torpedo launchers managing to completely destroy every single one of these submarines here. Very, very nicely done. We have T3. We have tons of T3, actually. Why aren't we using it? Is the question. Those Razorbacks could easily push through this front line, and I think it's good posturing here. Yeah, the blue team just looks strong. They're spamming units out left and right. They look like they're doing a great job. Realistically speaking, 3 Razorbacks are able to end this game right now. They could 100% go ahead and end this game at this moment. Here it is. The attack we've all been waiting for. The Salamanders finally revealed themselves, blasting apart both of the red bases and easily melting those fusion reactors, T2 laboratories, geothermals, metal extractors, you name it. The Salamander heat ray beam is here to devastate. Fighters up and overhead here trying to figure out what to do about it. Yeah, the Maroon Commander doesn't really have a great option. Check out some of those salamanders. Firing their beautiful little heat ray beams. Very satisfying to watch work. And there they go. Tearing apart this backline like it was nothing. Razorback finally manages to catch up to them to a certain degree. Yeah, better keep them moving. Razorback managing to blast them down quite nicely here. That said, once they duck into the water, they are safe. It's tag rules. Once you're in home base, you're safe, and that's water for salamanders. Well, they're a little bit... Need to dive, dive, dive. Preoccupying that T3 with the salamanders is well worth it, though. This hurts. Watching all of this T3 just sit idle on the front line hurts. These units could have 3 times over pushed forward through this front line and completely devastated it. The only thing that even stands any remarkable chance of shutting down this T3 are these Dreadnought battleships, or Despot battleships. Nuclear bombers. Hey, massive nuclear bomber connection. Shuts down the metal extractors, the shield generator, and basically everything else. It means that the salamanders are able to march forward without basically any resistance. Getting behind the T2 lab here of the yellow commander and doing tons of damage in the backline. Metal extractors falling. Salamanders a blasting. And a partridge in a pear tree. Beautifully done. OP, man. With an OP strike. Yeah, forcing those Razorbacks back. The blue team with an economic lead at this point. The eco has continued to scale. And we are headed into a very satisfying lead right now. Again, this is should have been easily cleaned up right here. It looks like the purple commander has gone ahead and pumped out more and more of these despots. Continuing to scale up that battleship navy. Eating up the T1, never a bad idea, because of course you can utilize them for well, more and more of those T2 boats. We have Buccaneers out as well, so depth charges shouldn't be too difficult to find. Launch a couple of those to force those submarines out of the water. Salamanders now trying their very best. And actually doing a great job. I thought they might be shut down by this massive wall of pawns over here, but they're actually AFK. Jazza not worried about microing those, instead microing in the backline here, trying to get an APHIS up and running. There we go. Pawns are finally scrambled to try and shuttle this down, but really there's not a lot that stands in the way. A single pulsar not going to be sufficient to shut down this many units. You can see it kills one of them, but 10 more take its place. D-gun here to try and shut down as many of these as possible as well. But they're in between the commander and the laboratory. How badly do you want to D-gun them? Badly enough to D-gun your own lab? I don't think so. 19% HP remaining on that commander is brutal. Salamander's running out of steam, though, a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna go and speed up this game here because it looks like we're devolving into no man's land when really, again, these Razorbacks could easily have won this in the midsection here. This is not very many forces. Not sure why on earth we're throwing away these T2 Hounds. Big old Navy battle on this side as well. I see a big storm of bombers moving on the southern side, and it looks like these boats are going to pull back, so we'll switch our view over here. Tons and tons of bombers and fighters to boot, all colliding over the base of the Maroon Commander. The air player here for the red team. Knocked out of the air indeed. Yeah, the fighter swarm here for the Green Commander is more than sufficient to blast this all down. Bombs away on the fusion reactors, and boom go the fusion reactors in a brilliant chain reaction, knocking out major sources of energy production here for our Maroon hero. The APHIS is not the primary target here. Apparently we're going to choose to go for the E-converters and the build power. Not the end of the world, obviously. If you shut down the build power, there's no way to mount a response here. Loads of T1 anti-air available. Oh, fusion reactors. Boom go the fusion reactors. One more bomb. Oh, the bombers just barely don't manage to blow up that fusion reactor, but if the bombers won't do it, maybe the salamanders will. Neck amputee. The Green Commander manages to get these salamanders up into the main base right here and start blasting away all the Maroon Commander, and indeed it's enough to trigger a resign vote. Oh my goodness. Despite having the T3 to win this game, despite the Navy battle going on this northern side looking pretty promising actually, those destroyers are firing away quite nicely, trading out efficiently. If there's a couple res subs to eat all this up, I think this works out quite nicely here. Despite all that, the resign vote is called. The morale of the red team is crumbled. A good defense. Those torpedo launchers aren't messing around. Every time they fire, it's a huge scuff on the track for any of these boats. And you know what? There is a flagship in there. I didn't notice as well. That's an 18,000 metal reason to not want to be in that fight any much longer. And indeed, it looks like the rest of the red team will agree as they throw in the towel here, despite having the tools and having the opportunities, not making usage of them. And it'll be the blue team with overwhelming aggression and moral superiority. Morale superiority, not moral. Morale superiority that managed to win this game. Very GG indeed. And thanks a ton for watching. Let me know what you enjoyed about this one down below in the comment section. There was a lot of really funky plays in this that I really enjoyed. So I sure hope to see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody. Have a lovely one.